Welcome back. As I mentioned in the video that's going to release today, which was an explanation video on camera mounts, that's enough about that. It is now May 5th, 2025. First, I'd like to say that this video is proudly sponsored by me, T-Flight Skunkworks at tflight77.com. I've got a storefront there with a couple of products on it right now. Check back. Hopefully I'll add more. If you guys have suggestions of things you've seen me make that you would like me to offer, I will happily offer it there. There's the shameless plug for the storefront. Now that that's out of the way, I mentioned in that last video that there's some changes that might be being made to these wingtips. Anybody who's been paying attention to aviation probably knows that there was an airplane crash of a aerobatic performer, Rob Holland, going into Langley Air Force Base. While he was on short final, he lost control of his aircraft and sadly he perished. The initial results of that are coming out saying that a plug on his elevator for his counterweight may have come out and jammed his elevator, which obviously would be detrimental when you're trying to land an airplane. I have thought about this because it kind of hit home because I have a similar situation set up where my aileron could get jammed. And I thought about this when I did this design, and I've been trying to think of different ways to keep that from happening long before this accident even happened. This just kind of put it back in the forefront of something I should address sooner than later. So if you watched my wingtip videos, you know that I made these retainers. They have a screw in them, a number 8 screw. And then let's see if you can kind of see this. There we go. They go into the rods and then they screw in there and they stay in the end of the wingtip. The problem is I have no way to obviously retain this screw. It is held in with a nut plate that kind of acts like a lock nut, but it could work its way out. I could check it on pre-flights. That doesn't mean it can't work out in flight. And if it did, I don't think this would ever come off. It wouldn't allow the wingtip to come off or anything like that, but it could theoretically pop out far enough to jam the aileron. One thought I had was filling in the end of the aileron so that this couldn't get in there and it would just rub against it, but if the aileron deflects far enough, it could go far enough past to possibly get jammed. So some thoughts that I had was coming up with a way to run a piece of safety wire across it as a visual reminder that it is locked in place, or maybe some edge tape that goes over. You normally put on a leading edge of like a flap or something that goes over this just to make sure it's retained and I can see it on a pre-flight and know that there's no way it can pop out. Chris gave me a pretty good idea, which is what we're going to try in this video. I'm going to make another block with the holes going all the way through it, which I've already made, sort of. I have to make the holes. And going to see if there's enough wiggle room to be able to slide this up and in and then down and into a pocket that I make with a false rib basically right here, so that once it's in there, it's not going to work its way forward in flight. The pins will only let it go so far and it would take serious effort to get this thing to come forward. And lost my train of thought. Anyways, the idea being that you slide this up past the opening, then in, and then slide it back down, and that way it is now locked into this little pocket with this false rib so that it cannot pop out. And then when it's time to change it, I'll just have a hole in here or something that I can stick a tool in and slide it forward again to get it off, physically pull it out and pop it out. So we're going to try that. We're going to see if it works. We're going to see if it's feasible, and then that'll give me some peace of mind that this thing's not going to do anything bad on me while we're flying. So stick around. I don't know how many more videos I'm going to have before the fuselage comes up. I do go out on a work trip later this week, and then after that I've got vacation. After that, the fuselage should show up. So there may be a break in there, but there'll be lots more coming up soon. So stick around. VoiceOver Tim will do what he does and get you caught up on how this went and what really happened. See you later. All right, welcome to the voiceover part. This actually went really well. Chris had a great idea. It implemented really well. It wasn't even that hard to do. I think this whole thing, I mean, other than letting resin cure and sand like normal, I think the whole thing took me maybe an hour per wingtip to do of actual work time. So, took the block, made a whole new block, drilled holes all the way through it so that it can slide up on the rods, and you'll see that here in a little bit, so hopefully you get a better idea what we're talking about. And now I'm making a false rib that's going to be a retainer to go around the block, basically a pocket that block can slide back and sit into. So grab some spare aluminum. I think that was some O20. It's not very thick. It doesn't need to be. This isn't structural. It's just keeping that block in place. Plus, it's going to get recessed a little, and it's going to have a layer of flux and resin over the top of it. So initially, it's just fitting it up and then testing it to see if it actually works. So the way it works is the pocket is just as long as it needs to be to barely clear the length of the rods when they're fully installed. They just barely clear the lip. So then you drill holes all the way through the block so that it can slide further up the rods and then clear the pocket, and then you push it in towards the rib and then slide it back into the pocket that you created. And now the rods are held in place by the block, which sticks out of the pocket about an inch roughly, and back into the pocket a good 1.5 inches or so. So this first part was just me making up the rib and testing out the theory to see if it worked, and it did. So now I'm going ahead with the rib and getting it marked up to get riveted in place. Now, I didn't think this through all the way. First off, I put 3 rivets per side in this one. I don't know why. I should have just done 2 and 2, and that would have been plenty, which allowed me to rivet this a lot easier on the second wingtip, and you don't see that, unfortunately, but I learned my lessons. It's very hard to get solid rivets in there. Bucking bar, a standard bucking bar doesn't reach. I know some people have little skinny bucking bars that would probably work really well for this application, and I am using soft rivets because it's going through the fiberglass again. And since it's going to have flux and resin and everything else on it, it doesn't need anything stronger, not for what it has to do. But for me, getting those rivets set was a real pain in the butt. I had to take a flat piece of steel and modify it with an arm that would reach up in there so that I could buck these rivets. I was able to do it. The way I finally did it on the other wingtip, though, that is so much easier, is I only did 4 rivets, 2 per side, and it turns out if you put the back ones in first, you can actually hinge that thing out so you can reach in there with the squeezer, squeeze the back 2, and then it still has just enough flex that you can push it in and then squeeze the front 2, if you can picture that. I am sorry I didn't get it on camera, but I didn't film much of the other one since it was the same process as this one. Anyhow, this is all just me fighting with those rivets the first few go-arounds here. There you can see the custom-made bucking bar. And I'm not sure when you are all going to see this video. It is now Wednesday, May 7th. This is all done. I am getting ready to leave literally in about an hour to go on a work trip. Going to try and get this done and edited and scheduled to release probably Friday, May 9th. We'll see if I'm successful or not. If not, it'll be after I get back from this trip next week. Anyhow, there's the first round of flocks. Get it sanded, and then I wanted to just make sure it was actually going to work, so I installed it temporarily on the wing before I put any more work into it, and it does. So I pulled it back off, and now it's time for micro. So another round of resin and some micro, and this is a fairly thin layer. This isn't built up really huge or anything like that. So again, I'm not really adding much weight. I would venture to say that the weight of the screw that I removed almost balances out with the weight of the rib, the rivets, and the resin that I just put in here. So get it all sanded, cleaned up, and then shoot some primer on it. These parts are not bad to do. These flat surfaces sand really quick and easy, and they're easy to fill. This is nothing compared to having to blend stuff in and feather things out and make it all look really nice. That was pretty much all of the sanding right there. Just 10 times speed. Got it cleaned up, shoot it with some primer sealer, and now install it onto the wing. And I will slow it down to normal speed when I put the retainer in so you can just see what this looks like. This is actually really easy to do. And I did play with this once it was in there. Now, mind you, the wings are hanging with the leading edge facing down, so gravity should be helping to pull that block out of the pocket. But the nice thing about this design, one of the benefits, is because of the geometry of how those rods are angled into that block, the more I shake it, the more it just wants to wiggle back and into the pocket. Even if I have it pulled most of the way out, the second I start rattling it, it wants to go up and back into that pocket. So really good. I'll leave you some parting shots and one more little video of me installing it on the other wingtip. And that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully this is going to be safer. And I will see you all on the next one.